WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out Amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and Twitch.tv. Hope you're all ready for interpretations about what 2 weeks means. I'm Garrett, Winesboro.
I think it means 3 years. I think it means 30 years, which is so many years.
It is. It's so many years. Oh God, I can't get over what a...
So lame.
What a way to start it.
It was like J. Allen Brack. It was like J. Allen Brack went to his writers. I like to picture J. Allen Brack with a team of writers in Blizz HQ, and he goes in. He's like, "Give me the lamest opening you can think of." And they're like, 30 years is so many years. It's like that's too much. I'm doing it. Oh, fingers on the pulse there. We just made a BlizzCon line joke. There we go.
There it is. Well done. Welcome back to WoW Killer, everybody, the podcast where we try and joke like we're talking about what's killing WoW, but in reality, we just can't stop playing it.
Oh, it's true. You've seen right through my facade. You've seen right through my yeah. It's true.
That's what it is. Anytime you read a forum post, or you see one in a YouTuber that's entire shtick is about collecting the most bombastic posts on forums, and it makes you kind of angry, just think to yourself and realize that whatever that person is saying, whatever curse-laden rant they're going on, it really just translates to, I can't stop playing this game and I'm overinvested.
Maybe. I don't know, man. I think a lot of people, genuinely sometimes think it sucks, and I think we should give credit to that.
That's fine. And sometimes it does genuinely suck. It really does. And we've talked about some of the times that it has genuinely sucked. And I think right now the wait genuinely sucks.
Yeah. Look, we've talked about it ad nauseum, and the wait is far too long. I did a proper breakdown on the latest weekly reset of, exactly the kind of time frames we're talking about here. And I
liked your little bar graphic.
Yeah, it is going to be...
I'm going to talk about a visual on an primarily consumed through audio.
Dude, all these people right now are on an electronic device. There's not a single person listening to this show right now who couldn't scroll onto a different page and watch the weekly reset with its excellent bar charts right now. So don't apologize, Garrett. No one's listening to this on a record player, are they? No one's listening to this on a tape deck. Anyone who's listening to this right now can scroll on over to YouTube and can turn on the weekly reset. And, I'm talking, right? So they don't even have to have the sound on. They can imagine that the Taliesin on that show is saying these words right now. And just get to the bar graph bit. You can have a look at it. You can go, wow, that is really fair. When Taliesin said there was a cool bar graph on the weekly reset, I doubted him because he's lied to me before. But this is actually really good. A visual representation of the way that Shadowlands opening patch is going to be the longest in the history of WoW. It's gonna be a long boy. Yeah, exactly. In all likelihood, will have been the same time frame as it took Legion to get to 7.2.
Oh, that should have been your graphic, by the way. You should have done height comparisons of mounts, and then the wait for 9.1 would be the long boy.
Nice. But I wanted an actual proper mathematical representation. Some of us take this shit seriously, Garrett. It's not all just, I know you just throw your shit together and just put whatever out there for your content. But some of us, we like to do this properly.
Oh, ouch.
No, but okay. So look, basically, just to repeat what I said on that show, if 9.1 comes out on June the 22nd or later, and let's be honest, it probably will, then yeah, it will have taken longer to come out than 7.2 did in Legion. We'd have gone through 7.0, 7.1, and got to 7.2 by the time 9.1 launches. If it comes out on June the 22nd or later, and June 22nd being a Tuesday. So it needs to come out the week before that to have like it's still far too long. Like whatever. If it comes out on like June the 16th. No, what? Yes, June the 16th. No, June the 15th. That was 7. Yep. If it comes out on June the 13th, like so it avoids that. It's still far too late. Don't get me wrong, but it's very interesting. But Blizzard have now confirmed that within 2 weeks, hence Garrett's incredibly topical joke at the start of this show, in 2 weeks we'll be getting our PTR, whatever that means. But we were also told at BlizzConline what a lovely long PTR it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be like, and it's here. You can test the logo splash screen because the zone is actually not ready for you to visit.
Please, Garrett, we've got to stop calling it a zone. Okay, it's not a zone, it's an area, right? We cannot, as content creators, we have a responsibility not to call this shit a zone, because when it comes out and it's definitely not a zone and it's definitely just an area, people will be like, what? They promised us a zone, and they never did. They've never called it a zone. It's always been an area. Now obviously we call it a zone because that's just easier, and it's kind of like, you know, so
you think it's going to be more on the on the scale of what, like Broken Shore rather than Najatar?
I don't think it's going to be on the scale of Broken Shore at all. I think it's going to be on the scale of like the Beast Warrens. I think it'll be an area comparable. Honestly, if it's the size of the Beast Warrens, I think we'll be lucky. I think it will be an area of Torghast comparable to the Beast Warrens. I don't think it will be anywhere near the size of, like, because they called the Broken Isles a zone, and they ain't calling this a zone.
I would say I am aghast, but I guess I'll just say I am a Torghast at that.
Oh God. You're on fire today. Usually, I'm the funny, handsome one, and you just do the rest. But today, you're stepping it up with some excellent jokes, and I'm wow. I don't even know why I'm here anymore. I'm just here to press buttons.
I don't know why
you go wild, man. No, you do your thing. I'm just gonna.
I don't know why the size.
I got some chocolate down here. I'm just gonna crack open a beer. I'm just here to, like, you tell me when the show's finished, and I'll press the button and finish it, and like it'll be great. This is perfect. This is how I always wanted the show to be. This is brilliant.
I mean, it's 9 a.m. here. Let me go grab a beer and I'll join you.
This is what happens when you get an extra hour of sleep before you get to do this show. It's like an extra hour of joke thinking. Wow. Okay. This is why we're never doing it at 10 a.m. your time, because you're going to blow me out of the water. I won't even get a word in edgeways. There'll be so many jokes.
I really hope that every joke I make today, that you spend this much time giving me an attaboy for it, so that any joy for the joke fully dies by the time we move on to the next thing we talk about.
I'm so proud of you. So, like, earlier, my boy shat his pants because he's a baby. He's 1 year old. And as I was taking off his nappy to clean it, he what he sometimes does is he grabs things and throws them around the room while I'm cleaning them on the table. And today he grabbed his shitty nappy, and I was like, uh-oh, it's all going to go wrong. And instead of throwing it at my face like he has done before, he handed it to me politely. And I was so proud of him. And that's comparable to how I just felt after you made that joke.
Are you saying that typically I throw shit at you, but this time I politely handed you shit?
I suppose I am.
I'm just gonna move on from that, because if I think about it for too long, I'm gonna get offended.
I suppose that's what I'm saying. So okay. So wait, hang on. Let's go back to the topic at hand here. You're saying you expect. I forget the name of the Corv. Anyway, you suspect this new zone to be a zone and not an area.
No, I'm saying that I actually haven't stopped to really have a good think about how large I expect this zone area to be. And now that you mentioned it, yeah, it'll probably be kind of small.
They've referred to it as a new area in the Maw, right? So I'm gonna expect it to be the size of a new area in the Maw, and the new area in the Maw that you unlock is the Beast Warrens. So that's my frame of reference. You know, I've already unlocked an area in the Maw, and it was the Beast Warrens. So I guess a new one would be like the Beast Warrens, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, you know.
I mean, that's a good point. I guess I just hadn't thought about it. And I guess also in my mind, not that it should be linked, but it just kind of, I think in the back of my mind, I was just living there like, we're going to wait a long time. This better be substantial. But
yeah, well, again, that's another problem, isn't it? That when you've been waiting so long, that you expect a lot more than maybe you're going to be given, because you're like, well, it's been this long a wait, so there'll be this much content. But it wasn't meant to be that long a wait. So the amount of content they're going to give us hasn't increased, but it being delayed has meant that maybe our expectations would make us think that there would be more content.
Yeah, now that I think of, I don't know why, but I wasn't comparing it to the 0.1 patch of BFA where we didn't get jack. We didn't even get a new zone. No. I mean, I guess we got the Darkshore Warfront, so there
was a Warfront,
but yeah. But that was it. I mean, the big selling point of 8.1 was the raid.
Yeah, I mean, and what a raid it was. In fairness, it was. I mean, technically that was 8.15, but you count it as 8.1, and it was.
We're gonna also avoid the fact that they were also still adding heritage armor, and they haven't finished adding heritage armor, and they seem to have forgotten about heritage armor.
Well, I mean, what races still need heritage armor though?
Don't ask me a question like that when I don't have a list up in front of me.
Elves, basically. Okay, so here's the thing, right? The majority, like the main bulk of races that are still waiting for heritage armor. I think I said this last week on the last mailbag episode, actually, or last time we read something from the mailbag. The ones that are still waiting for heritage armor are the ones who kind of got a version of heritage armor from Warfronts. So, like,
that is a good point.
Although we didn't get human set, the Stromguard set is blatantly human heritage armor.
That's fair,
and comes in 4 different flavors, unlike normal heritage armor. So excellent. And likewise, the Orc heritage armor is like the Horde Stromguard set. Then you've got the Night Elf and Forsaken Darkshore sets, which I mean, those are as close to heritage armor as you can get, really.
That's fair. However, as a long Night Elf player, you went to that Warfront, and the Night Elves were basically naked.
I know.
And I want that armor.
That's all I want.
That armor was on my box for vanilla World of Warcraft, and I want it.
And they made
both
my
male
as well.
And female Night Elves.
They were and it was the first time they've ever just gone, hey, we're going to make the male version literally even more revealing.
Yeah. Dude, Night Elves, they know they have it going on.
String.
They know they've got it going on, and they're happy to show it off. Exactly. And if you flaunt it, got it. And that's what those wonderful purple people are doing.
Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. That needs to happen, needs to be a thing. Naked Night Elf armor, please. And yeah, if that isn't the Night Elf heritage armor, which it won't be, but when it's not, we'll all be very upset. Yeah, trolls.
Also, can we just take a moment and also bask in the glory that it made me realize it very recently, because I saw so many of this happening in back to back. Demon Hunters really did finally bring a bunch of scantily clad dude characters to the game. Yeah. I've seen so many Demon Hunters in the last week just running around just transmogged to be totally topless. Yeah. I'm just like, this never used to happen. Before Demon Hunters, it was just ladies running around in the bikini armor from vanilla. And now finally, there's all these elven dudes just running around like it's a summer day in Florida.
Well, and that was before when the Night Elves all started wearing their skimpy armor in BFA. That was before we had all of the new Night Elf customization as well. So male Night Elves have so many more excellent chest hair options going on now. Which it's criminal to hide under Shadowlands armur.
Wait, are you doing can you actually change Night Elf chest hair? Because I haven't.
Are you seriously telling me you haven't done this?
I always am armored up on my characters. I'm always armored up.
You just skipped over that bit on. Okay, yeah, it's all okay. So it's technically tattoos, but their tattoos it's all hair. It's all shaved hair, into different shapes. Their tattoos aren't tattoos. It's hair which has been groomed. That's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing ever.
Oh man. Okay, I'm looking at some of the models right now. I think that's up for debate, but fair enough. I definitely like it more if I think of it as hair.
It is hair. Of course it's hair, yeah.
Oh man, this is so entertaining. I need to stop wearing armor on my night elves.
You need to stop wearing armor on everything. Prove what a baller player you are. If you can't get cutting edge wearing no armor, what kind of Warcraft player are you?
What am I doing? This is why I'm not getting invited to Mythics. I'm wearing shirts. Delightful. But yeah. So we were before we take some emails, just to put a cap on our little off the cuff 2-week conversation. Do we really think they mean 2 weeks? I guess they said about 2 weeks.
Yeah. So there's a few questions here, right? I think it will come out in 2 weeks. I think it's likely to come out. Well, it's Thursday today as we record this. I think it's likely to come out 2 weeks today. The first PTR and hit 2 weeks today. The question is, how much is going to be on there? Like, are we going to see Corsia, the new area? I think I've said that right. It was in my head suddenly. I think maybe someone in the chat said it. Are we going to see any of that? I think it's very likely we will see some of the new Covenant Hall stuff. So we know there's going to be 40 new layers of renown. So, like that will appear at our kind of Covenant person. I think it's very likely that we'll see the new version of the Maw. So the Maw is going to be a little bit different in general, let alone the new area. So it's going to be a lot of a much less threatening place because, we've neutered it somewhat by becoming friendly with Venari and all this nonsense. So there's going to be the Covenants are going to be working together in the Maw. So I think what I gathered from what they explained is there's going to be little outposts for each Covenant at various parts of the Maw where they've kind of like got a foothold in the Maw now. The Eye of the Jailer isn't going to be a thing anymore, and then like we're going to fight it in the raid, and I think it will probably have something to do with Odin. It might even be Odin, who knows? So I'd expect to maybe see a bit of that. Whether or not we see any of the new area, you'd hope so, but the fact that they showed us nothing of it in BlizzConline, and you'd think that if they had anything to show, and that was only a few weeks ago, I'd love it if they just rocked up with a new area and we could have a proper explore of it and see it. And I'd like to think we will, but I don't know. It would be nice if we got the new dungeon, but I suspect that's not finished yet either. There was a Danusa put up a screenshot of the infinite pirate dragon in situ, like in the dungeon, maybe 2 weeks ago, and that was clearly the first he'd seen it in situ. Like that was clearly an internal image that someone had sent to him and gone, look, we put the infinite pirate dragon in the dungeon, what do you think? And he was like, I think that's amazing, I'm tweeting it out. Like, I don't think it's playable yet. I think it's still at that stage where they're putting stuff in still. So I don't think we'll get the dungeon, but who knows? I could be completely wrong. Like, I'm imagining it's probably all hands to the pumps at the moment. So it'd be interesting. Like, hopefully some story we can see. I don't know. I'm kind of, my hopes aren't high for how much we're going to have to play on the PTR, to be perfectly honest. But I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. I'm hoping to be proven wrong. I don't say that very often.
I mean, yeah, just all signs point to them being very much behind. But at the same time, PTR's hitting soon. We're gonna have to have something to test. So,
then the question is, of course, like, assuming it does come out in 2 weeks, the PTR, that's one thing. But then what does that mean for a release? I think it means hopes could be high for a slightly earlier release than we were expecting, and that's only because our expectations are so low with it. I think lots of people are thinking July, August, as a realistic release date for this patch. Hopefully PTR coming in 2 weeks means that it might be a little bit earlier than that. If it comes before June the 22nd, I'll be extremely happy.
I bet they're trying to get it out before July 1st. If I had to hazard a guess.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll give them, if they do launch in 2 weeks, or even if they launch in 3 weeks, that'll give them slightly less than 3 months.
I think it's definitely going to be after
PTR.
Burning Crusade. Like, I think most people would think that right now. It's going to be interesting. And then there's a case of like how much will unlock over time, because obviously the raid isn't going to be. I think it's going to be one of those ones where the raid comes maybe 6 weeks later. something like that. Although they've been really good with that recently. Like usually the raid it follows quite closely, like three weeks at most, kind of after a patch release. But I got a feeling this might be one of those ones where, because like all of the story is set in the moor, right, and in the new area of the moor, and that whatever story happens in the new area of the moor, you'd expect to finish with the raid. Like you'd expect the raid to really put a cap on the story that happens. We're having all the area.
We're having crossover with all of the covenants, right? So I'm assuming some back and forth, some ping ponging between was it Carthia and whatever covenant we have decided to join. But yeah, I would expect the majority of the questing to play out in that new zone.
Yeah. But then that was the case. That was the case for Najatar as well. The story of the zone was over once we'd done the raid, but that's still released within 2 weeks of the patch going live. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see how they're going to do it and what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, and when we're both in the boat of 0.5 is a stopgap that they probably weren't planning on doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So that also makes me wonder how flexible they're maybe considering being. Like, do you think maybe they are like, all right, we're going to put out 9.1, but the mega dungeon ain't going to be here yet. You're going to have to wait for that.
Yeah, maybe. I would expect the order to be that 9.1 releases with the dungeon, and that the raid would come about 6 weeks in. Maybe 10 weeks in.
Okay.
Like in 7.2 on the Broken Shore, I mean, it was 12 weeks before that raid opened, which was horrible. We opened the door to the raid on the first day of the patch, and we had to run around doing shitty weekly missions, which were already the dailies. Like every week we went back, and Khadgar was there like, hey, that daily you've been doing for the last 5 weeks? Go and do it again, but this time it's a weekly, and this time it's like your story content for the week.
Boy,
like, okay, thanks.
We really narratively forget about how obnoxious that was in Legion. We're all like, you ask them like, what'd you think of Legion? Everyone's like, oh, it's great. Greatest expansion ever if you're not an Arthas fanboy. But you forget, like, we were all furious at that.
But you know why we forget, Garrett? We forget because Tomb of Sargeras was a stonking raid with an amazing ending. And then we had Gnargus in the sky. Yep. Like, for the remainder of that patch, we had Argus in the sky, and don't forget, the raid released, and the week after the raid released, the week after Tomb of Sargeras released, while, like, the Race to World First was still happening. So Method, as they were then, and Exorsus were, like, fighting for Race to World First, Tomb of Sargeras. Before that was over, a week later, Argus hit the PTR. Like, the whole first zone of Argus hit the PTR, and it was like, whoa, what a time to be alive. And that's why people don't remember how horrible the first 11 weeks of 7.2 were.
I remember.
I remember.
But effing, you're right. Tomb of Sargeras, probably my favorite modern raid.
Yeah, you stick the landing, mate, and no one's going to remember how horrible the first 11 weeks of your patch were.
Mm-hmm.
Fact.
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff. Well, shall we take some emails? It's been a while since we've checked in with our fine listeners.
Sure thing. I hope there's some good ones, because I approach our mailbag episodes much like I do my raid progress nights. I don't look at this shit in advance. I don't,
Tally, I would like to let you know that when I click on this share button on this Google Doc, it says shared with one T&E email address that I'm not going to specify.
Oh, wait, sorry, really? Oh,
Yeah,
I think, okay, I do know the one. I know that one then. Yeah, I guess so.
It's right there. Anyways, folks, if you want to write in, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to ask us a question, if you want to give us your hottest take, write into wowkillercast@gmail.com or tweet us at wowkillercast, because that's where today's questions are coming from. And on the subject of the wait, we are still in the middle of for 9.1. Caronto wrote in, or Caroto. Sorry, there's no N on there. Caroto says, hiya, longtime viewer and listener of both of your work. Nice. It's so nice. I'm so sick of all these Tally stands, man. Everyone's like, oh, I love Tally's shit. This Garrett guy's okay, I guess.
You play it cool.
Yeah.
I know you're the biggest Tally stan of all.
Anyway, Caroto writes, recently we've been hearing a bunch of people talk about when they think 9.1 will drop, and the consensus seems to be likely in the July-August region. You just said that, Taliesin. And you also just confirmed that you don't read emails ahead of time, so well done. However, this has got me thinking, what does this mean for the rest of the expansion? BFA ended with a pretty bad content drought, and then Shadowlands itself got delayed. Even after that, we're looking at more than 6 months in the first patch. Needless to say, that is a crazy amount of time. And if they really are that far behind schedule and are already working overtime just to get 9.1 done, that essentially means that 9.1.5 and 9.2 would also be behind schedule. So that's where my question comes in. What do you guys think went wrong with Shadowlands? Do you think it is purely the impact of the pandemic, or do you think there's something more to this? BFA saw the complete revamping of the Azerite system, which likely took up quite a chunk of dev time. So do you think something similar might have happened behind the scenes for Shadowlands? Cheers, Kuroto. P.S. When can I get a dick-hungry chicken mug?
It's a question I ask myself every day. And
Yeah.
when I say myself, I mean Garrett. It's an email I send every day. I'm like, Garrett, where are those dick-hungry chicken mugs and T-shirts and statuettes?
So I'm going to throw a pin at this conversation and say we need to have a chat about where we're selling merch.
Oh, okay.
Once we agree,
sounds good.
Once we agree, I can get some designs up there.
Well, we'll have a WoW Killer merch store, because that logo you've done for WoW Killer 2 years ago, which we use every day, is brilliant. That needs to be on a T-shirt and a mug as well. Come on, what's going on?
I still want my two gas, Too Furious shirt really bad because I'm a Fast and the Furious.
Well, no one's stopping you designing it, Garrett. No one's stopping you putting it on the T-shirt store.
Yep. We just need to decide on the store.
The Fast and Furious merch, who might sue you. But
Real Nazoth in the chat room wants to know where my WoW Killer assless chaps are. And listen, as soon as I get back from the local leather master,
WoW Killer, the WoW Killer logo would work beautifully on assless chaps because of the O. One W on each buttock. The rest is taken care of.
That's not merch we're selling unless we're selling temporary tattoos.
No, we're selling it. It's been decided.
Okay, fair. I'm not designing the instructions for that, by the way, just so you know. Anyways, back to this. I mean, I do tend to lean towards, I think the pandemic is the main source of delay on 9.1. Because nothing else, we don't have anything akin to the Azerite system revamp. Everyone is, for the most part, happy with covenants. There's always exceptions to this, but for the most part, covenants are pretty well received. Even with the changes that came in 9.0.5, most of the feedback I've heard from people that are switching, they're like actually kind of excited to switch, which I think we talked about a little bit.
That's been the most satisfying thing about like the whole covenant thing for me, is that those people who are switching covenants, which we always said was going to be the worst case scenario, are actually really excited about it, and that's like not something I'd have thought at all, and it's really fun.
Yeah, so I don't think there's just no sign of there being anything like that. That's cannibalizing dev time, right? Because we've seen that twice. We saw it where they were like clearly retroactively had to add flying to Draenor, and then they had to completely retool the Azerite system, and both led to some serious waits and droughts, and it was way worse in Draenor. BFA still managed to hit a good amount of patches, but Draenor, it was a selfie cam. You know, what a world we lived in. But
yeah, I agree. I don't think the delay has got anything to do with revamping systems a la Azerite. They've pretty much said as much, to be honest. I believe in like a blue post that Ian Hazakostis did a few weeks into Shadowlands. Maybe when they were talking about 9.0.5, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ian specifically and explicitly said that they were very happy with where the systems were at, and there was nothing like the Azerite situation that was taking up any dev time. I think they've come out and explicitly said that. And I take them at their word. They have added like Valor to the game, which could be comparable in some ways, but I don't think has it's in. So I don't think it's kind of like bled too much dev time. So no, I think it is a case of the worldwide pandemic situation, I think, and that's borne out through looking at basically every other major video game that has come out in the last year as well, where it's been a case of they have either been delayed or they've come out something like on time, and it was clear that they really, really should have been delayed. Like the most recent example being Monster Hunter. The new Monster Hunter game that came out has had basically all of its story content cut. Like, it's just not there, and it was planned to be, you know? And this is just the kind of situation we're in. Like, every major game release is having the same sort of problems. Everyone's saying, well, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't. It's like, I don't know. Like, let's wait until those patches and expansion are out before we kind of praise them for... And also, like, okay, so Japanese companies maybe have it slightly different because, well, they have a different work kind of environment for a start, but also they wear masks and it hasn't really hit them as hard. So stuff like that. And like, so yeah, clearly you just have to look at how other video games have been affected to see why it's understandable why that would be the case for Blizzard. And you know, like, we don't know how long that's going to last, and you know, you'd like to think that maybe they would be able to adapt to it and what have you. But it has been quite noticeable that the things that did seem ready for Shadowlands were the things that we're traditionally told are what holds production up and is the time-consuming things. Like, judging by tweets from people that work in different parts of game development, like, the art assets and things were finished and ready to go, and that being stuff that in my head is a more personal kind of job. Like, you lock yourself away and you design some assets, right, and you make some things and then they're put into the game, and the thing that was holding it up was the more collaborative stuff like story and writing and what have you, which would make sense and which is understandable. That doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at the entire expansion being drawn out in that respect. And like, the interesting part for me of that question is, what does that mean for for 9.2 and 9.3? Is it going to mean that we essentially abandon this expansion halfway through, like what clearly happened with WoD? I don't think we will, because at the moment the problem is that everything's just taking far too long, right? So, you know, WoD was presumably on track when they made the decision that no one likes this and we're going to do better to like put all of our energy into Legion, and it was the right decision in hindsight. But if they made that decision now, that delay is still going to be there because the causes of that delay are still there. So I don't think it would actually achieve anything, and I think they will see this expansion through as planned on whatever time frame it takes. And I think... yeah, I think we could be looking at just like much longer patches, and whether they come up with plans to keep the patches more entertaining by adding more than they, you know, or changing the systems in ways that give them more grind or what have you to do, that could be possible too. But yeah, I think we're looking at, you know, I don't think we're looking at 9.1 coming out and then 4 or 5 months later, on the dot, as we were expecting, here comes 9.2. I'd love that to be the case, of course, but I don't think it's going to. Because, like, bear in mind, like, we're looking at November being November this year traditionally being when the next expansion would be announced, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I don't know. I think there's just kind of a domino effect happening with this delay in Shadowlands, kind of like what you pointed out. So if they did something akin to Draenor, or I think even that happened a little bit with BFA, looking at its final patch, but not to such a extreme degree as what we saw with WoD, right? But if they did that with Shadowlands at this point, like, what would they cut? Like the 0.3 patch entirely? Because, you know, Kuroda mentions a bad content drought at the end of BFA, but there's a content drought at literally the end of every single expansion.
It was particularly egregious at the end of BFA, in fairness. I think, wasn't it the longest final content patch in WoW history?
I don't know the exact numbers in my head, but to me, I was just like, this still doesn't feel as bad as Pandaria.
Fair. But that could just be lowered expectations after Pandaria.
Yeah,
You know?
and Wrath of the Lich King gets a pass basically by cheating. It added Emerald, Ruby Sanctum. That was such a joke of a raid. Like, it was barely content. Like, barely. So if you like, I look at Wrath of the Lich King and I go, Wrath of the Lich King ended with ICC. That was a really long wait.
Mm.
So we're used to it, I guess is what I'm saying. Like,
I know,
it just
and
got
that's
like
the thing. That's with no pandemic, right? So I mean, like, I do think that is the only cause. I don't think there's any kind of. I mean, WoW's got plenty of devs working on it, more than ever before. They've got everything they need. There's definitely a will there to be releasing content promptly. And Shadowlands is packed. Like, so much effort went into the opening patch of Shadowlands, and you could tell when it was nearing release, because like the devs tweeting about it and stuff were genuinely proud of the amount of content that they put into it. You could tell. And playing it, yeah, you might not like all of the content, and that's absolutely fine. That's subjective, what have you. And we've discussed the pros and cons of the different types of content in Shadowlands a lot. It's our job. It's what we do. But there's no doubt that there's lots of it, and I think the dev team were rightfully proud of that. And I don't think their plan was to go, well, that's that. Like, we nailed the opening, so we can just shit all over the rest of the expansion. No, like, they wanted to keep that up, and they wanted to like hit those standards for the expansion. It's something they're incredibly invested in. I think, like, talking to, I know that. I know people who are writers on the game, and I know they were proud of the Covenant campaigns. And like the work that went into those, and I know that they're hyped to be telling a story, because they, Denusa clearly has a very specific story that they want to tell in this expansion, and I hope that they've learned the lessons from BFA. They certainly have made noises that sound like they have. And I think they're looking forward to telling this story, and I think they're proud of the story that they're going to tell. And I think, signs are there that it's going to be a really good story. I like everything that's happened so far. I like all the Sylvanas Anduin stuff. I like all the Covenant stuff. I like where it's going. I like the threads that are open at the moment and where they could lead and what could happen. Particularly with Tyrande, although I think we've all known what's going to happen with Tyrande for a little while, and my mind hasn't changed with that since the whole Night Warrior thing even happened. It's been obvious to me what the end game of that is, and my mind hasn't changed. And like I think they're looking forward to telling that story, and I think. When Denusa was talking about, because like in BlizzCon Online there was a real noticeable lack of hype, and like they it's easy to see why they didn't have anything to show us. And it's kind of hard to just talk the hype, right, when you haven't got anything to show in that kind of situation. And Feasel in particular, like Ian's good at it as well. When Ian's got something to show you, he can hype the shit out of it. Like, he's actually like surprisingly good at that. And Feasel is a natural when it comes to that kind of stuff. But even then, like, there's a reticence to it because there wasn't much to actually show. And the only bit of like real selling that I saw in BlizzCon Online was Steve Denusa in the Q&A, where he was talking about the raid and the end of the raid, where he was like, look, it's going to be so good. Like, it's going to change stuff. It's going to, like, stuff is going to happen. It's going to be meaningful. Like, and it's going to be, like, shit is going to go down, And, like, I think he's, aiming for the metaphorical, much discussed Argus in the Sky moment. And I think, there's going to be something there. And something massive and kind of, I think it might even change the whole direction of the expansion. Like, I think a lot of us expect the expansion to kind of finish with the groundwork for like a Cosmo Disco war going down, but who knows? Maybe it's going to launch straight into that. I wouldn't expect it to. I expect it to be a bit more low key than that. But like,
yeah,
that
to me seems ripe for like having its own expansion.
Yes, but that's what we said about Black Empire. So.
That's the Zoth ain't dead. It could still happen. It could
Arthas
still
in
happen.
The sky. Yeah, I'm still hoping for Arthas in the sky.
What, like that episode of Rick and Morty where there's just the giant body floating?
Well, one of the very first Weekly Reset intro skits that we ever did on the Weekly Reset was just after Argus in the Sky had happened. And we had me and Evitel in bed, in our actual bed, me in my suit, obviously. And Evitel was like, oh, why don't you go and look out the window, Taliesin? And I was like, okay, and I pull back the curtains, and it's like the backdrop from Argus in the Sky from the cinematic, but instead it's Khadgar's head and his ball in the sky saying knowledge is power. And I'm like, what have you done? And Nevitel's just there like, yeah, knowledge is power, bitch.
Can you do that? Can you do that now with a giant floating Arthas?
Well, and all that's what I'm saying. I would like to see the
you.
equivalent, and I'd like to see Arthas in the sky. It would be sweet. I'd love that. And they're like, what have you done? It would be so good.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I really like where the story's been going, and as an old email pointed out, I'm with that as well. There's a few too many like hanging threads of like stuff for my personal tastes. You know, maybe they'll pan out and be super rad, but some of the stuff is just like
what hanging threads are you talking about in particular?
Well, like who the Winter Queen's sister is.
Oh yeah,
we had this discussion. I think it was on the last mailbag because we had an emailer write in, and I kind of disagree with them. I'm just like I'm with them. Like, why did we get it? Again, I have to imagine a large part of it is they weren't expecting to have to wait so damn long for 9.1, but it's just like this cornucopia of here's a seed of intrigue that we're not going to follow up unless you went Venthyr, because they're like the only ones who kind of get a closing of a chapter at the end of 9.0.
No, I don't know. I think the Kyrian campaign has a really nice closing of chapter. I think the Necrolord ties up its storyline quite nicely. You still got the House of the Chosen and Vyraz to deal with, but that's cool, like, because you know it's there. Like, it's not so much a loose end as like that's the thing we've still got to do, but your sights are on it, so it doesn't feel like a loose end. Like a loose end is more when you just kind of finish and you're kind of pretending that other thing isn't there, right? So like for me, that's a loose end, is when like, you know, you finish BFA and no one's really mentioned the sword in the planet again, and you're like, that feels like a loose end to me. But like the Necrolords finishing their campaign and still having the House of the Chosen to deal with doesn't feel like a loose end so much as like a plot line which is still to be resolved, which is slightly different. And same with the Kyrian campaign. Like they've rebuilt Elysian Hold, they've mostly dealt with the Forsworn, you know, they've got, you know, Hellier with the Moorsworn is still out there, and that's like their target. That's in mind. It's not being ignored. It's like, yeah, that's what we've got to do next. Lots of loose ends in the Night Fae campaigin. But
yeah, which is where I've predominantly
the main
spent my
one
time,
being Tyrande, and we know that's going to get tied up probably at the end of the next raid.
And the Winter Queen's sister is just like, why even have
like,
that line in there?
Not going to be one that they keep hanging. Like, and like it's obvious to everyone who it is, but you know, it would be nice to have the it's clearly going to be resolved.
I know. I'm listen, I get that. I'm just saying, like, my personal taste, that's not my favorite kind of storytelling. It's kind of where WoW has been, again, in like what I would call modern WoW. I think I've explained this before and I don't want to retread it too much, but I call it the Game of Thronesification of WoW storytelling, where they just have so much ancillary BS happening that I'm not quite sure what to focus on.
Sure.
And which also means some of your stories just don't get the love and care that they all deserve, because there's no way you can tell that many stories to the same level of quality.
So I know for a fact that when it came to writing the Night Fae campaign, the people in charge of it, you know, they didn't like go, hey, and then wouldn't it be cool if we introduced this story? And then wouldn't it be cool if they introduced this story? Like, they were told which stories they had to touch in that campaign, and they organized those myriad storylines as best they could. So there's nothing in that, like, although that campaign feels really random, and that it just hits so many different kind of like random offshoots that aren't going to be resolved, they were told very specifically exactly those storylines that had to be in there, and they kind of wrote around that, and they tried to fit it in as like meaningful and sensical way as they could. And I think, given the circumstances, they did an incredibly good job.
I think that's fair.
They had like someone has come to them and said, okay, right, we're going to need to like lay the groundwork for Tyrande, and we're going to need to do stuff with Bwonsamdi and Muatzala and get all that stuff done. We're going to need to introduce the idea of like all of the other night warriors and get the search on for them. And hey, let's have some Drust shit going down as well, because why not? And like that's sorry, yeah, Vol'jin needs to become like a lower. So if we can get that in there as well, that'd be really, really good. So they've got like...
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Totally.
You know,
like, none of those stories have an end that they were allowed to tell in the,
you did two things.
In the campaign.
You did two things there. You reminded me that I'm impressed by how they fit all the Loa Bwonsamdi shit in. I
actually thought they did that really well, I gotta say.
Yeah. You know what? Hats off. Overall, I really enjoyed the Night Phase stuff. I think... And so the second thing he did there is remind me that I think I'm just still butthurt by the ending because I just thought it was so not great.
It's because they chose like obviously the most boring thread to finish on. Like
it's always so much easier as the consumer, right, to look at everything that happened in post and go, I would have cut this, but I really would have. I would have just been like, get the Drust out of there. It is so disinteresting.
Me too. But it's only disinteresting because of like everything else is so good, and I think pound for pound, it's probably the best campaign. Okay, it's got like my least favorite type of WoW quest, which is gathering ingredients to lift a poison or curse. It's got that 2 weeks in a row. Like you gather ingredients to save Theonax's husband, like from a curse, 1 week. Who's a guy that you've never met before, by the way. And you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll lift this curse off him. So you go around collecting ingredients for that. And then literally the quest the next week is trying to lift a curse from some like fawn that's been turned into a Drust. Again, someone you've never met before. And again, you're just gathering ingredients to try and lift a curse. Except this time it fails and she dies. And you're like, oh, well, I wish I hadn't got out of bed this morning, really. This was useless. But like,
listen, they can't all be winners, but yeah,
type of WoW quest 2 weeks in a row, and I'll never forgive it for that. But I mean, I think otherwise, pound for pound, it's the best campaign. But yeah, it's that thing of like, you get to the end of the campaign,
it's front loaded.
Yeah, well, not even
the
front loaded.
Quality of it
like,
is front loaded.
It just ends on the wrong note. You're like, you've got all of these options. You've got Tyrande, you've got the Vol'jin stuff, which I think is really, really good. You've got Herne the Horned Hunter out looking for Herne Highmount in the Horned Hunter. Sorry, I didn't get enough H words in there. Out looking for the Night Warriors. You've got like Theonax and his husband, who are like surprisingly boring for the amazing like lore characters that they are. And they
literally give you a unicorn form, which you would think
absolutely.
would just be one of the most fantastical, like celestial, like wonderful things ever. And yeah, you're right. It's just kind of
yeah, you get to hang out with Bwonsamdi. You get to like do cool stuff in Nazmir. Like you get you actually like gather an army of good Loa who are now just hanging out in Ardenweald waiting to attack someone on the Night Queen's like say so. You've got all this amazing stuff. And then we end on the Drust. And Arelon having the worst death, I think, in WoW history.
Oh yeah, I was like, wait, that's it?
Where you kill the baddie of the campaign that they haven't really built up at all. Not the writer's fault, I hasten to add, like just bad planning. And so like, yeah, they haven't built up this Drusty baddie at all. And then you're fighting her within like 10 minutes of this quest. And then you kill her, and you're like, okay. And it turns out it was Arelon who'd been made to look like her, and you just killed Arelon. It's not like, oh, we must save him. It's like, no, he's dead.
Yeah, it's like, hey, watch this N64 cinematic, where this character we have been building up since the pre-hype for this expansion dies, and it's yeah.
And
I was like, wait, that I had to immediately upon finishing it, like go over to the wiki and just be like, that was Arelon, right? The main. This character they really went out of their way to make us care about.
And look, and the annoying thing is, right, that last chapter is really good, okay? It's really well done. The battle in the Grove of like Re-Origination or whatever it is really awesome. And like it's a really good final battle. And it's really exciting, and there's like all the characters from the Heart of the Forest are there like fighting, and you help them all out individually and stuff. It's really good. It's just like there's so much amazing. It's a victim of having so many brilliant threads in that campaign. and then they kind of went with the most boring one to finish.
That's a really positive way to put it, right? Is that like the things that don't land as well in it are just so apparent because there's so many other things that really stick the landings.
Yeah.
Peppered throughout that entire campaign.
But I mean, the important ones that you'd want to see resolved from that, and this is how we got onto this. Sorry, is Tyrande. Is going to. So you're not gonna. No one's sitting there going, "Well, they're never going to resolve this Tyrande thing, are they?" I mean, they are. And it'll be the next patch.
I think my current question is, will it be resolved in this expansion?
Yeah,
I think it will.
Well, exactly.
I'm hopeful it will. But it wouldn't be the first time that, like, I was really delightfully surprised at the beginning of Shadowlands when she's hanging out at the top of Ice Crown and just yeets herself into the portal. Because I was just like, all right, so if this is anything like Jaina, Tyrande's going to start to show villainous behavior, and then we're going to forget about her for 3 expansions.
No, they're seeing this one through,
and that did not happen. Yeah.
So my prediction for the end of this Tyrande arc is the same that's been since the day she became the Night Warrior. What is, and I'll tell you what that is, but what's your prediction for the end of Tyrande's arc here?
It's World of Warcraft, so I feel like she's gonna be redeemed and figure out the error of her ways.
Redeemed from what?
From her bloodlust.
Well, hang on, like, you're doing such a bro thing here, okay? You're doing such like a World of Warcraft thing where, like, Arthas can literally genocide like an entire race. Arthas can just kill everyone and raise them as scourge, okay? Okay, that's the kind of shit that needs redemption, all right? What has Tyrande done that needs redeeming? Being a bit angry. Like,
no, I'm
sorry. Male characters in World of Warcraft can do any old shit. They can kill as many people as you like. Okay, and they get rid of like Illidan drowned a whole bunch of people. He like melted Northrend. He like kills a whole bunch of people. And it's like, this dude can be redeemed. He's awesome. But like Tyrande, and I can't see what the difference between like all these male characters and Tyrande is for the life of me, but like Tyrande gets a bit angry, and we're talking about Tyrande like justifiably because her entire city got burned down, okay, and like her entire people got killed, and as their leader, she's angry now, and everyone's like, will she be redeemed? Redeemed from what?
I'm so sorry. I missed the part where I said Tyrande's behavior is on the same level as Arthas committing genocide.
She literally has done nothing wrong.
Because that's the level of the reaction that you're currently having, and all I was doing was using terminology that apparently you just disagree with.
No,
but it's true. I feel like it triggered you.
This whole thing of I think the Winter Queen definitely evil. Why? I think
okay. Well, it's God. I want to react to everything you're saying, but you've mentioned multiple things. All right, Winter Queen, I kind of get because they did make her just look a little sinister in the opening in that animatic. I can understand
the CGI
that.
one. I tell you what it is.
But once you hang out with it, once you actually go through the quest thing,
Garrett, can I tell you what it is? Like, because that's actually really interesting to me. Like the high res cinematic that you're talking about that showed.
No, not the high res. I'm talking about the animatic with Erelon. Like I had kind of an idea of like
you've misread that. But the one in the CGI,
talked about it. We had a whole. We can go back and listen to the episode where we talked about it.
She's got big eyebrows in the high res one, and it makes her look really evil. It makes her look bad. And like no.
So,
I mean,
but hold on, because if I'm being a bro, you're being an SJW. Because
suck my dick.
I'm just saying, if you're calling me bro, I'm gonna throw something back at you, because all I was trying to what my point is that it sure seems like to be a similar arc to Jaina's. Like Jaina went from this somewhat pacifistic to kind of a bloodthirsty,
Jaina arguably did something wrong. Tyrande's never done anything wrong.
That's not what I'm just saying. It's a similar arc. I use the word redemption. That was the word I chose to try and convey all of that to you, and then you call me a bro. So that's all I was trying to say, is that we've seen this with characters in the past, and I can't help but see parallels to the character change, like the changes in their behavior, the changes in their demeanor to Jaina. Like, it's very difficult for me not to just see a parallel there, because we very recently went through it. We saw Jaina kind of peak in her warpath in BFA, and then kind of come back down to earth. And I think we're going to see a very similar thing happen with Tyrande. I think we're going to kind of see this Warpath peak, and then we're going to see her kind of come back around to this.
I agree.
Leadership middle ground.
I disagree with your time frame. I'd say that Jaina's warpath peaked when she killed all the Sunreavers, and when she was about to drown the whole of Orgrimmar and decided not to. I'd say that was the peak of her warpath, because she never really did anything bad after that. So and apart from that, all she was angry. And I just feel like in World of Warcraft, male characters are allowed to just do whatever they want and kill people a lot, and that's what they need redemption for. But it does feel an awful lot like female characters need redemption from just being justifiably angry about shit. And I think a really good way is the way everyone talked about the Arbiter versus the Jailer at the beginning, where they were pretty sure the Jailer's actually a good guy, and I'm pretty sure the Arbiter definitely bad, and the Winter Queen definitely bad. I'm pretty sure the Jailer's going to turn out. It's guys, it's a bit transparent. I don't know, man. I just feel and when it comes to Tyrande, she's not done anything bad or wrong in the slightest.
Again, I wasn't saying she wasn't justified. I
you
really
use the
like
word redemption, which suggests it.
We're fighting about semantics.
No, I know. We are now, because you've clarified what you were saying. But before you clarified, when you just used the word redemption, that's when I started saying this stuff. And you have clarified that now, and I understand. But
because I want to make it clear, I really like where Tyrande is. I would like more of this. I want Tyrande's going full John Wick, and I love it. I love everything about it. But I just. And I wanted to end with her still realizing she needs to lead her people and still be somewhat pragmatic. But I love that she's currently just off on no, I'm gloves are off. But I find Tyrande just so much more infinitely interesting than Malfurion. It's not even funny. It's not even close. My preference between those two characters.
Oh, for sure. And that's always been the case, really, to be honest. And I'm joking around, of course, and I'm not saying that you are guilty of this in the slightest. I was just using it as a thing to riff off. But I know exactly what you meant when you said redemption, and it's the same thing that I think is going to happen with her as well. So there's how one of the themes of Game of Thrones before they ran out of books and it just became rubbish was that seeking vengeance just always ends with you dying. Seeking, I'd even go as far as to say that the main theme of Game of Thrones, before they ran out of books, was that vengeance will lead to your own destruction, and the pursuit of vengeance will lead to your own downfall.
Violence begets violence.
Very
much
exactly.
the.
It's a bit more personal than that. Even it's not seeking vengeance for a genuine wrong against yourself will leave you worse off than just not seeking vengeance for it, and that vengeance is a bad thing, and a self-destructive thing. And I think that's probably what we're looking at with Tyrande. I hope that's what we're looking at with Tyrande. She embraced the Night Warrior, understandably, but through a lust for vengeance, and that is being shown, literally and physically and visually, to be having an effect on her. In that first chapter of the Night Fae campaign, she's got literally power shooting out of her and causing AoE damage on the floor around her, which she can't control. She's literally kind of overflowing with vengeance, and clearly the path to, for want of a better word, redemption for her is a realization and a kind of a putting aside of vengeance. So there's absolutely 100% going to be a reckoning between her and Sylvanas in the raid, in the 9.1 raid. And I would like to think this is what would happen if I was writing this story, and this is what I've imagined would happen since 8.1, when she embraced the Night Warrior. I'd imagine that she has the chance to kill steal Sylvanas, and decides not to. And I suspect maybe just spitballing, we're in a situation at the end of that raid where Sylvanas is about to kill us, and Tyrande has the chance to kill Sylvanas or save us, and so chooses like saving people over extracting vengeance. And that's like what saves her, and what saves Tyrande as a person would be.
Or I think it could Sylvanas. There's a turn coming with Sylvanas. Like,
oh yeah, and that could come after that moment. But I feel like the way that I would, and I make all my predictions for WoW just by what I would do. And they often turn out to be right as a result. And I would have, because clearly Tyrande needs. There's two ways this can go. Tyrande either has her downfall through seeking vengeance, because that's why they gave us a satisfying moment of her actually getting some vengeance without punishment from a lesser character, from Nathanos. Okay, so like what they've done there is they've given us as the audience the satisfaction of seeing her get some honest to goodness, down in the dirt vengeance. She killed someone that wronged her. And like that is essentially fan service, so that when she doesn't kill Sylvanas, and when she doesn't extract vengeance, and when she chooses the better path, which saves her and maybe us, we have less complaint that, well, she never got her vengeance, because we have had a chance to see her do that to a certain degree. It's a bit of a cheat. Like having her kill Nathanos, if this is how it works out. It's put in there basically to give us like. It's important that we're shown that vengeance is bad, right? And the right choice is not to take vengeance. But also, vengeance can be quite fun. So we're going to give you like her killing Nathanos to enjoy, so we can all enjoy that bloodlust and that vengeance. But, the wider story is that vengeance is bad. So when it actually comes to Sylvanas, it'll be like, no, oh no. That's why, like heroes in video games, they can like kill 1,000 henchmen on their way to the final boss, like mercilessly and without even thinking about it. Like in the level leading up to the boss, they're just killing people left and right, and then they get to the boss and they have them at their mercy, and they're like, no, I'm better than this. I'm gonna it's like, bitch, please, you just killed 1,000 people getting here, and then you get to the one that's actually done something wrong, and you're like, no, I'm not like you. I'm going to spare
No, this is a Naughty Dog game.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And it's like,
I love them. I love Naughty Dog games, by the way. But yes, you are describing like the core.
Yeah. And every Hollywood movie, and yeah, exactly. I think
I'm with you. And also, like, they can't just do the same thing over and over again, right? Like, we've already had our really awesome cinematic of Tyrande getting her vengeance on Nathanos. Like, do we really just want to see that a second time, but with a different character?
And I've never for a second thought that Tyrande was going to become like consumed and become a baddie or anything like that. I've never thought that.
No. I always thought
not
what I meant.
Her story was going to end with her resisting the urge for vengeance and doing something better. And 9.1, the raid, would seem like the perfect place.
Yep. I like the concept of like leaders in Warcraft, and while I think Tyrande is going to go on a path we've seen before, which is bloodlust and then back into pragmatism, I want her to go that route, because I don't want to see Tyrande, like we were for the longest time speculating as if Jaina was going to become a raid boss one day, and I don't want that to happen for Tyrande. No. She's just too interesting. I do not want to be left with just Malfurion as the leader of the Night Elves. For the love of God, don't do that to me.
Another important ingredient of this, another important aspect of this, of course, is that I don't think anyone expects Sylvanas to die in the 9.1.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't either.
Obviously, Tyrande isn't going to kill her, right? So
we've got an email about that.
Oh, okay. Good segue. Sorry, we've gone on a bit of a tangent here, which is very unusual for us. So maybe we could
listen. The point of this show, okay, I'm gonna let you know.
We are laser focused. What are you even talking about?
The point of the show.
That's what it says in every single review on iTunes. I haven't read any of the reviews on iTunes, but I'm sure they're all 5 stars. And they all say I'd give this 6 if I could, and also mostly because of its laser focus. And Taliesin.
We probably ruffle some feathers here because I jokingly called you an SJW, so I'm sure we're gonna get some ruffled people.
No, you'll get people like, bro, yeah, they ruin everything.
Well, that's the thing. I want you to know, I was I was committing to the bit and not. I know I'm not with you.
I know, and you committed to the bit in a braver way than I would have done. And I respect you for that. Enjoy your hate mail. My God, what did you get hate mail for last week? What did you say last week that got you hate mail? Or should
I don't know, but I wanted to be clear, everybody. I liked The Last Jedi.
Hey, look, you even said you liked the Snyder Cut. Like, you should be getting no hate mail this week, all right?
Yeah, what camp do they put me in? I like The Last Jedi and I like the Snyder Cut. Oh, what camp do you put me in?
You're obviously some kind of fake, like a girl streamer.
No, it's almost like I just kind of like, I like seeing artist visions to the completion. It's just fun. It's good.
Hey, if you watch Justice League on YouTube, then you can put it up to 1.5 speed for all the slow-mo bits, and it's a much better movie. And it's only about 2.5 hours.
I will not get baited into talking about how I legitimately liked every scene with the Flash in the Snyder Cut. And you're doing yourself a disservice if you speed those scenes up. Anyway, on the subject of Sylvanas not dying, we got an email from Valinori. And I'm dubbing this mailbag's lore question because there's always like one that sets us off. I can't believe we're still on the first email.
You can't believe it. Everyone who's listening to this show is like, I too, Garrett, am amazed that you're still on the first question.
Doesn't matter. I'm not gonna get into a meta conversation about this podcast with you, Taliesin. I won't let you do it. Valinori writes in and says, "Hey guys, big fan of the pod. If you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for topics, I think the Windrunner sisters and what they have in store, not only in Shadowlands but beyond, could be really interesting and a textured conversation to have. Not only because of the Void and Cosmic Disco War implications, but the long tumultuous history of their relationship with one another." Warmly, Valinori, Earthen Ring. P.S. Tally, I grew up playing WoW with my dad, and I hope if you and your son play together someday, you guys have as much fun as we did.
Amazing. Yeah, me too. I hope I get to play WoW with my son, because that means WoW would last for at least another 10 years or so. That'd be great. I'd be down with it. My son's a simple soul as well. He'll love WoW.
We haven't seen the other Windrunner sisters at all so far. This expansion.
That's a very good point.
This expansion.
Area must have been somewhere, surely.
Yeah, we had that really cool comic. That was a lead into BFA, wasn't it? Where Sylvanas clearly set up an ambush to kill her sisters and decided not to.
Yeah, the creepy twins and Sylvanas is a planned ambush for her sisters. Alleria has come face to face with Sylvanas since then in the Lordaeron throne room in the prologue to BFA. You know, where she marches in with Anduin, and she's just standing there while Anduin does all the talking to her sister. And yeah, but they established why Alleria wouldn't be talking to Sylvanas at that point, so I get it, and I like that cinematic. I thought it was good.
Benjamin in the chat room says they're out there hooking up with human dudes.
Yeah, well, exactly, and
the Windrunner sisters, they've all got a type,
and they are humans.
They like themselves some humans.
They do. And that's
some people have they prefer a hair color. Windrunner sisters, they prefer a player type.
So there's there's the issue of the Windrunner brother, of course, who died, and presumably he's in the Shadowlands somewhere. I find it impossible to think that there won't be something with at least Alleria and Sylvanas. I mean, so Alleria is definitely going to be important in the future, because the whole Alleria and her husband, sorry, my brain is melted today.
We're talking about Illyria?
Sorry,
it's Tyrellian.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Varisa for a moment. I cannot think of Varisa.
The work they did on Alleria and Tyrellian in Legion was exquisite and really, really good. And the whole 1,000 Years of War thing. And now she is a Void Ranger, and he is a super mega light dude. And in the comic, in the story, they couldn't even touch each other, right? Because like light and void was sort of like sparks, Apparently they can touch each other now, but and they've had, they are set up to be the perfect kind of foils in, I don't know, just off the top of my head, if you wanted to do an intergalactic disco cosmos war, it would be cool to have a really powerful couple in the game in positions of authority, one of whom literally represented the light and one of whom literally represented the void. It just might be handy. Like, it could open up some stories.
It would also be interesting if they had an offspring.
Yeah, exactly. If they had an offspring, and if lots of prophecies had been made about the child of light and shadow, maybe the son of a character who now literally represented the light and a character who now literally represented the void, maybe that would be quite interesting. Especially as the son of those people, who could quite reasonably be described as the child of light and shadow, particularly as when you first meet him in TBC, he tells you a dream about him dreaming about his father dying in a really dramatic way. And wouldn't it be very interesting if Il'gynoth had also done a whisper saying the Golden One sits upon the throne or whatever, and now Taliesin was sitting on the throne of Stormwind, quite literally, while Anduin was missing. Just feel like that would be quite interesting. And
can the Warcraft writers start doing all of their prophecies in a single orb-like object like Harry Potter? It's just too hard to keep them all straight at this
We've already got the sorting hat, mate. So and the vaguely problematic goblins. Like, we've got a lot of Harry Potter elements in this game already. It's fine. And like, yeah, so I mean, Alleria is definitely going to be very important going forward, as is Taliesin. Whether she'll be important in Sylvanas' storyline, I doubt. I'd like to think both her and Varisa would be, but I feel that the comic might have been their bow on the relationship between the three sisters. And I feel like that comic we were talking about might have been as much as we're going to get. And I suspect... Do you remember at the end of Legion where Illidan decided to stay at the Pantheon just so he could torture Sargeras for the rest of time?
That is...
All the time was like, I guess you'll be going home now. And Sargeras was like, nah, I'm going to stay here with my knives. And me and Sargeras going to have some fun.
Can you think of a more on-brand ending for Illidan?
Also, I just can't really imagine the other Titans letting him do that. But okay, like, they're all sitting there and they're like, no, stop doing that. Don't do that. Like, stop it, little mortal thing.
But anyway, I don't know. I mean, if I was the Pantheon, I'd be pretty pissed at Sargeras too.
Maybe. But
I'd be like, hey, you know what? Listen, we're just going to let Captain Edgelord have his fun, and we're going to go back to things being the way we like them to be.
What's a few millennia? We're eternal beings. Let's just let this guy have his fun for a little bit.
Maybe Sargeras could be imprisoned and tortured for 10,000 years. I don't know who else that has happened to.
Fitting. But anyway, so you remember when you come back from the Pantheon and you have like some little you have a little quest to go to Malfurion and to Tyrande, and you get some nice voice lines where they just explain their feelings about Illidan. So you go back and you talk to Malfurion and he's like, well, my brother always was trouble, but he is still my brother and maybe he did okay. And then you go to Tyrande and Tyrande's like, well, I definitely chose the wrong brother. Gutted. And she doesn't say that, but she should. And I feel like that's as much as we're probably going to get with the Windrunner sisters. I think whatever's going to happen to Sylvanas in Shadowlands will, to a certain extent, put a bow on Sylvanas. Like, whatever happens, I don't think she's going to die, but I think she'll be in a position where we can kind of put her to one side. And she's kind of like Illidan, in a way, out of sight, out of mind, until they decide to bring her back. I think they'll bring her back before they bring Illidan back. But I think, she's going to have an expansion at least off. And she's going to get sidelined a bit. And I think there'll be a moment where we probably go back into the land of the living. And it's like we go and see Varisa and we go and see Alleria. And there's like some reflection on their part. But I don't think there's going to be any like major story kind of, progression via the sisters. Would be my guess. I'd be happy to be wrong because I'd like to see them do more.
WoW loves changing like the form of major characters. Do you think there's like a chance of Sylvanas going over to like the light side of undeath, or maybe full on like resurrection to a proper
Yeah,
living elf?
maybe. I mean, I feel like the most fitting resolution for Sylvanas would be, okay. So there's two things about Sylvanas. There's her initial tragedy, which is that she was not allowed death and that she was forced into undeath, and that's a tragedy that should be righted. And then there's her actions since, which does demand some kind of redemption and atonement. So like you have these twin things. It's like, yes, she deserves like some kind of justice for the massive tragedy and injustice that she suffered at the hands of Arthas, but she also she needs redemption and punishment, whatever, for the acts that she's committed since, which are on her. And so for me, Shadowlands is all set up to provide both of those things, because it's the afterlife, right? So it's the perfect place for her to find the peace of death that she is due and which she deserves, by just being in the Shadowlands and not being undead. And it's also handily a place which is where souls are meant to go to face atonement and face the consequences of their sins. So like for me, Shadowlands ticks the two boxes of what you need from Sylvanas, like and what a stop in her story needs. It needs justice for her original tragedy, and it needs atonement for everything she's done since. And Shadowlands is uniquely placed as a reality to provide that, and I think it will.
That's where I'm assuming as well. But we've also talked so damn much about how we're pretty sure we're leaving Arthas and Revendreth. I don't think we're doing the same with Sylvanas.
No.
Which is why I think
maybe. I mean, there's a popular opinion that she'd become the jailer, or that she'd become the arbiter, which I don't see at all. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of story to be. I mean, one thing that Dreadlords, what's going to happen with that? And there's clearly a lot more story to be told in this expansion. And situations and opportunity for Sylvanas to be important before that bow is put on, and for Sylvanas to change, and for the situation that we are in to change. So I'm interested to see what happens, but I would expect her to not just be disposed of or defeated, put it that way.
That's where my head is at as well. But yeah, I think, as you mentioned, Illyria has a pretty big role to play in the Disco War to come.
Yeah.
Who knows with Varisa, which I kind of feel like is the game has been the playbook with Varisa for most of World of Warcraft, which is, what about Varisa? And the answer is, who knows?
It's a shame, isn't it, Varisa?
She's really just been like,
she's a great character.
Consistently
I really like
sidelined.
I think she's the most relatable of the Windrunner sisters. She's
she's the most well-adjusted.
Yeah, totally. And she's just pretty sound and legit, and she's got cool armor. I like her.
Yeah, I do too. WoW just Legion really, it got so god tier. Like, we're just dealing with gods and godlike beings at this point.
Okay, so here's my worry about Varisa, okay? If they wanted to set up a sisterly conflict, okay, where the new Cosmos forces, one of whom is represented by Illyria, and maybe Sylvanas somehow represents another one, if they wanted to set up a really big conflict between the Windrunner sisters, I'd kill Varisa.
Who would kill Varisa?
One of the Windrunner sisters.
Why would Illyria kill Varisa? And Sylvanas already had the chance.
Good question. Why would Illyria kill?
Okay, as long as this is not being said on stage.
Maybe Illyria is about to kill Sylvanas, and Varisa's all like, "No, she's our sister," and it turns into her dying instead. And Sylvanas blames Illyria for killing Varisa, but Illyria also kind of blames Sylvanas for killing Varisa, and that kind of fuels a feud between the two sisters. What do you think?
I think I need to know where Sylvanas ends in Shadowlands.
If you were going to kill one of them for dramatic effect, it'd be Varisa. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, she's the disposable one. She's the one. She's John Wick's wife, okay? She's like... This is what I'm saying. She's the one that you kill.
Wait, but by that extension, because I already said Tyrande is John Wick, that means that Teldrassil was just John Wick's wife.
Yeah, totally. Teldrassil was the woman in the fridge.
Thousands,
okay,
thousands of dead people.
You know the woman in the fridge thing, right?
What was that?
You know the woman in the fridge thing, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. That's Teldrassil. Teldrassil's in the fridge.
Boy. Okay. Yep.
It's sad, but there we go.
Teldrassil was a really big fridge then.
True. People saying that Teldrassil is John Wick's beagle puppy. I don't think it's important. It's not as important as the puppy. No way.
It's the puppy represented the wife.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
I'm just saying. If the writers suddenly decided, like, it would be really cool to like have some real drama between Sylvanas and Alleria that went beyond like the political situation and if they really wanted to milk that personal situation, like killing Varisa in some way would be the obvious, quite cheap, but obvious Hollywood thing to do. So that's why I worry about Varisa. That's all I'm saying. If you're going to kill one of them, it would be Varisa, right?
I'm with you. I agree. Yeah. Varisa is the disposable Windrunner sister.
You absolute monster. Wow. I can't believe you killed Varisa. That's horrible.
I did. And then I got up on stage, much like Teldrassil, and said, but why would Illyria kill Varisa? And then I would run that out for months, and then you would get there, and then we finally get a cinematic, and the answer is because she felt like it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the answer. After months of theories and
you
fan
cannot
posts.
Kill Varisa. Can't I?
I need to know where Sylvanas ends up at the end of this expansion. I think there's a couple options, and I need to know where she ends before I get my hands down in the dirt with which Windrunner sister ends up dying. It ain't Illyria. She's got too much of a role to play post all of this. Yeah. Illyria is now the safest Windrunner sister. I think that's the only thing that we've that's
for the time
destination we've ended at.
It's true. Illyria is definitely the one that I put my money on surviving the longest. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Let's move on. Das Herg has a question for us, Taliesin, and Das Herg wants to know: would Classic and TBC Classic be more appealing to retail players if transmog mounts, toys, etc. were shared across both versions? So this kind of ties into our Sparkle Pony conversation from last week. Das Herg says, I would love to earn those transmog items I had back in vanilla, but dusted because at the time just took a valuable space going into the expansion.
So, okay, my instant reaction is to laugh at that, not as any kind of personal slight to the question. I really appreciate the question. I will give it a serious answer, I promise. But the reason I was chuckling to myself then was because I was just imagining the reaction from the Classic community. Just imagining every time you log on to Classic, you'd be just swept away in a tidal wave of /spit. But no, I like the question. The idea that like transmogs and stuff that you collect in TBC and Classic and things will move over to your retail account. Have I understood that right?
That's my understanding. Das Herg didn't explain it as much, but considering Das gives his personal take at the end, which I would love to earn those transmog items that I had back then, but I got rid of them because they took up space. Yeah, this is going from Classic to retail, not retail to Classic.
Sure. Yeah, why not? No, I think that's a great idea. And like honestly, and I know like people are gonna hate me for this, but why not? Like if it doesn't affect Classic, you know, like, and that's the main thing, right? It's kind of I feel a bit stupid saying this because there's so many changes coming to TBC, but you know, the important thing is you want to maintain the sanctity of Classic, right? And you want to. I feel really stupid saying this because like there's more news about more changes that's happening to TBC coming today, but in principle, at least, you want to preserve like the purity of classic, and you want to keep it as close to the original as possible. You don't want things like new transmogs or new quests or new like changes to abilities or mounts and things like that in classic. But doing things in classic that can have an effect on your retail game, yeah, why not? I don't see any problem with that at all. I would like the option, honestly, genuinely, I would like the option to level to 60 in classic and then transfer that character to my retail account. Like, I would like the opportunity to play classic or TBC and level up a level 1 character to 60 and then or 50, say, and transfer that character to my retail account and get it started in Shadowlands. Like, I'd love that. I don't see
that is bold. However, I don't really take issue with that.
Who does it hurt? It hurts no one. Like, it gives players an option of how to play the game. It doesn't make the game easier. It makes the game a whole lot harder if you want to do it that way. It's not a shortcut.
That's a good point. Yeah,
like, exactly. You're not giving them a more efficient way of leveling. You're giving them a much, much longer way of leveling if they want to. Give players that option. If it doesn't affect the sanctity of classic, who cares?
This is very much in line with my thought about. Oh my god, why am I blanking? What's the other way we level right now, besides 50 to 60?
Yeah.
Threads of Fate.
Okay.
I don't love Threads of Fate. It's not my favorite, but I'm just glad that there's an alternative option for leveling up my
People wouldn't like
alts.
the population reduction, though. What are you talking about? You've got a character that has leveled through classic, which is always good because there's more people to group with for other people playing classic. And like, you wouldn't be deleting your character from classic, you'd be copying them over to retail. So that level 60 player would still be in classic, and then there's an extra endgame player in classic, an extra endgame character in classic for people to play with. It wouldn't be like a reduction at all.
Well, yeah, at the risk of getting even more emails and tweets, which I have gotten after we talked about boost, no boost of BC last week, which I would just like to say, I don't care anymore, guys. I'm out.
Oh, did you get? That's what you got hate mail for. I knew it was something.
Oh, it wasn't necessarily hate mail. It was just a lot of, this is the reason, this is my very specific one reason that I don't like boosts. And I just want you to know, I don't care. And I stand by what I said. But yeah, because you're right. Like, if there's a if chat room was saying, like, if there's people will be mad about the population reduction because you're gonna hit max and then take that character off the server. In what you're putting forward, the people who would use that wouldn't be there in the first place, which is kind of what we got into that conversation last week, which is like,
I wouldn't delete it from the classic server. I'd make it a copy, and I should have specified that, because like, ain't no one going to delete a level 60 classic character just to move them to retail.
Oh, okay.
Like, the effort that's gone in.
Yeah, well, yeah, which we didn't get into last week with the BC conversation, which is like, I'm still really surprised that we're not making copies to continue into BC. I'm actually, of all the things, that's the thing I'm the most bummed about, is that I have to make a choice of continuing my character on in the BC or keeping them in vanilla. I want both. Why can't I just copy it over?
Yeah, I agree.
I can't believe, boy, we went some places last week. I can't believe I didn't have a chance to wax philosophical about that.
There'll be guilds selling Atiesh boosts or something by the end of the day. I'm not sure you quite understand what we're talking about. I'm talking about leveling a character through classic, which takes ages, and then copying that character over to retail, which is a far less efficient way of getting a level 50 or 60 character in retail.
Yeah, you're saying it just offers another option for a way to level up.
But it's not a time-saving option. It's not like, it's the opposite. You're making life harder for yourself for more personal satisfaction, if that's what you want to do. It doesn't affect anyone in retail, won't affect anyone in classic. Like, in fact, it's good for classic because more people leveling up through classic. I don't see what the problem is. Personally, I'm sure other people can think of lots of problems, but I'll probably disagree
I bet one of the problems that someone is thinking of right now is you're going to get to retail and you're not going to know how to play your class because you just learned your class through an old form of the class. So which I say, I'm fine with that. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I don't care.
I'll sort it out. I'll go to Icy Veins or whatever.
Just give people the option to play. If it doesn't affect other people and it doesn't impact the competitive nature of WoW, because that's definitely there as well, and people need to be on something of an even footing a lot. Like, I mean, I don't see the problem with it. Let people play.
Like Action Man in the chat room says, haha, I already don't know how to play retail. I'm ahead of the curve.
Oh, he's saying people copying characters over with their Atiesh that isn't available in retail. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess. I don't care. I don't care if someone wants to level through Classic with a character and come out of it the other side with Atiesh and then like transfer over to retail and they've got Atiesh in retail. I don't care. They earned it. It's not like they didn't earn it. It's not like they didn't do the thing to get Atiesh. They still did it. I don't understand what the problem is.
I mean, let's be honest. Atiesh is a pretty butt-looking staff anyway. Do you really want to be walking around with that thing? Yeah, it looks like you threw a pine cone on the end of a stick and called it done.
There's a lot of kudos about it, though, isn't there?
I am aware. Well, listen, Atiesh has that little like ribbon hanging off of it, right? You just put a little tag on the end that says "Classic." There you go.
Totally. Yeah.
There you go. I want it to look like a bad TJ Maxx price tag. It just says "Classic."
I mean, no. Do you know what? That is a good point. It's a good point. And I can see why that would upset some people, but I don't care. Let them bring it over Atiesh. I don't care.
I think it's important that we frequently do this where we understand your concern, but it's not a concern we share.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I take your point and I appreciate what it means. I just wouldn't care if people came over with Atiesh, having leveled through Classic, into retail. I'd be down with it. I'd be like, cool, there's some history. I like it. Like anything that helps a character have a story makes the game better. Like a character that's leveled up through Classic, if they come over and they've got Atiesh, like that's still better for retail. It's more interesting for retail than boosting a character with a £60 boost or the boost that you got free with Shadowlands, right? For me, like the more story that any character has, it's better for the game. And that certainly fits that description for me. Yeah.
Well, this seems like as good a place as ever to end on the hardest hitting question that we received. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
It's a very serious question.
I'm ready.
Zionular wants to know, do you miss Dadgar and when do you think he's coming back?
I miss him every day of my life. I keep a signed photo of him behind me here on the wall, as you can see. So I don't miss him that much because I see him every day. But yeah, I don't think he's coming back anytime soon. I mean,
I'll say it. I don't miss him. I don't miss Dadgar. I was a little Dadgar'd out.
I didn't think I'd miss him, and then I got Magni.
Ooh, that's.
And then I missed him pretty damn quick.
That's all right. All right. I mean, if my option is Magni or Khadgar, all right, fine. Give me my Magic Daddy. But
just be clear, that's Khadgar, right?
Listen, I don't need to subscribe to only one and only Magic Daddy. Okay, if I want to have multiple Magic Daddies, that is my business, Taliesin.
Cool.
That is my business. Yeah, no, I don't really miss him. Compared to Maggie, yes, I do miss Khadgar, but I'm good. I could go with a longer break on Khadgar. I really could.
I mean, I miss elements of Khadgar, and I think one of the biggest elements I miss about Khadgar is Legion. Because I just loved Legion, man. It was so good. And when
don't worry, we'll get to Legion Classic very soon,
I'm like, damn, that was good. You know?
What do you think? 4 years before we hit Legion Classic?
I'd play it.
I would too. Could we just skip all of the? Maybe a miss. I would play a miss class.
I wouldn't actually. No, leveling from 1 to 60 in Legion was horrible. Like 1 to 110 or 100 leveling in Legion was shit. It was rubbish.
That's okay. They'll give you a boost, and everyone will be mad about it.
Because you have to level from 0 in Legion to 100 before you play the Legion content, because otherwise you're not getting the Legion experience. Right? It's logic. That's the logic. Yeah.
I mean, when would it make sense for Khadgar to re-enter? Would it be the Disco War? Would that make sense for Khadgar to be a player again?
I was thinking that, but I was thinking maybe not really. No, maybe when like you could feasibly do it when some Dreadlord stuff happens, I guess. It's difficult. Like, well, they're talking about Ner'zhul being an important part of the expansion at some point as well. And like Khadgar definitely has links with Ner'zhul in terms of story and things like that, so that could make sense. If like Khadgar needed to be reintroduced to kind of like tell us about Ner'zhul. What Khadgar? We have to go to Karazhan, find Khadgar, and be like, Khadgar, tell us, like, what do you know about Ner'zhul? Tell us about this dude, because we're fighting him, and he's all like, yeah, let me tell you about the Sons of Lothar and all that shit we pulled in Outland. And yeah, I could feasibly see that could be like a genuinely interesting reason to bring him back for a little cameo in Shadowlands. For sure. And while we're in Karazhan, there's probably loads of demons there we need to fight. I don't know. It would be really interesting. But they have kind of given the impression that Ner'zhul might feature. So that could actually be like a genuinely interesting way of bringing Khadgar back, just to pop his head through the door and be like, I'm glad to see the Horde and Alliance aren't fighting anymore. Well done. I'm still doing loads of study at the moment. What did you need to know? Oh, Ner'zhul. Yeah, let me show you a cool little in-game cutscene that we put together.
Am I like a basic bitch that wants to just roll around in fan service if I say I'm very ready for a little bit of fan service in my Shadowlands? Like, can we get some noteworthy dead people, please? Can we roll them out?
Loads. What are you talking about?
No, we haven't.
Kel'Thuzad in the next raid, for fuck's sake.
Okay, and that's 7 months away. Okay, all right. We're gonna be waiting a while to see Kel'Thuzad.
Ibrahim in the chat has pointed out that Deniza did say that the entire future of Shadowlands would be changed after the final boss of the next raid, which is something we touched on earlier, and we were talking about like maybe that
I assume that's what you were mentioning when you said you think he's aiming for his Argus in the sky moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of questions as to what side Sylvanas will be on at the end of that raid. If you had to make a call now, whose side will Sylvanas be on?
She makes her turn. She's good at the end of that raid.
I'm probably going to agree with you. Or maybe kind of like disappeared, and I wouldn't be surprised if she disappears for a patch.
Does she throw a smoke bomb? Just out. Ninja Sylvanas.
Yeah. She jumps up and grabs onto a train and is like, bye.
Bye. Trying to think of a Shadowlands equivalent of a train. It's a flying cart from the Venthyr.
It's the Thanos with Forsworn wings, and he's like, my lady. And she's like, yeah, and she just drops off the cliff. And then
it's the Nathrius who says, fly to me on your knees. or fly with me on your knees. And then we get our BDSM version of I Can Show You the World.
This is definitely the end of the episode.
100%. I mean, we're talking about BDSM versions of Aladdin songs. We're done. It's over. I hope you all have enjoyed this trip that we've been on. What a long, strange trip it's been. All right, Taliesin.
As she dies, she's like, she fires one final arrow up into the sky, and we follow the arrow. This is the cinematic. We follow the arrow. It goes into the clouds. And it starts to drop, and as it drops out of the clouds, we realise we're in Stormwind, and next thing we see is Varisa looking up at the sky like, what's that?
Well, I'm going to start to bring this home. Thank you, everybody, for writing in. If you would like to be a part of future episodes where we take your emails, write into wowkillercast@gmail.com. That is the email where you can send in your World of Warcraft thoughts. It's not retail only. Let us know your BC thoughts. We took one from Dasherg today. Other than that, Taliesin, if you were to promote your other content to me on your knees, where could people find the content?
YouTube.
Promote to me on your knees.
YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. Come, bring a bottle.
Bring a bottle?
Yeah,
for you or for the viewer?
What?
For you, did they bring a bottle for you, or did they bring a bottle for themselves for
the table?
Oh, just for the table in general. Okay,
yeah,
I like that.
It's just polite, isn't it?
Oh God, dude, just bring on the vaccine. I want to call someone and be like, "Come on over."
Don't bring no vaccine around my house. I don't care. Bring wine. What are you talking about? You turn up to my house, bottle of vaccine. I'll be like, "Where's the wine? What's going on? We're having a barbecue."
But once for vaccine.
What's this? What's this vaccine? What I can't do anything with this. I told you, wine or buffalo sauce. This is neither. What's going on?
You remember how before
your worst guest.
Before all this, we used to like mark our cups at parties. No, if I'm vaccinated, we're all sharing the same cup. It's over. There's no point.
Once all the vaccinations come through, I'm going to turn up at your gaff for a party with a bottle, and we're all drinking that bottle by me pouring it down my torso, down my leg, off my toe, and that's how you're drinking that bottle.
Done.
Can't wait.
Here for it. Let's do it.
I'm so excited.
Smash this keg on your knees.
Corkage's power.
Taliesin and Evitel is where you can find Taliesin's wonderful other World of Warcraft content. amove.tv is where you can find my other wonderful video game content. Go check it out. There's no sensible way to wrap this up other than saying, see you next time on your knees.